Welcome to Literary Journeys with River. Today we bring you the summary of Prince Lestat and the Realms of Atlantis, a story filled with ancient mysteries, blood, and redemption. Remember, this is only a summary, not the full book. If you love Gothic literature and timeless sagas, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. And tell us where you're watching from. Your comments help YouTube recommend more stories like this one. Let's begin. Prologue. Lestat dreams of a city submerged in the ocean, engulfed in flames and the screams of agonizing beings. Upon awakening in his crypt, he senses the presence of Amel, the entity dwelling within him, but Amel refuses to reveal the dream's origin. Now the root of the vampire vine, Lestat experiences its pain with intensity. The vision repeats, showing souls rising amidst the chaos of destruction. Although Amel insists he does not know its meaning, Lestat perceives his fear. Bound inseparably, they share both love and confusion over the nightmare. The stars, silent witnesses, offer no answers. As the sea swallows human ambition, Lestat clings to the only certainty he has left. Love is the only defense against the void of the universe. Chapter 1. Dererick has been imprisoned for 10 years in an underground mansion in Budapest, overhearing the conversations of his captors. Roland, a cruel and manipulative vampire, keeps him locked away, feeding on his blood without revealing why he is so interested in him. A visitor, Rashamandez, expresses disdain for Prince Lestat, whom he despises for having mutilated him. During their discussion, they mention Amel and other powerful vampires. Intrigued by Dererick, Rashamandez drinks his blood and sees visions of a luminous city and a figure called the Magnificent. Convinced that Dererick is key to understanding Amel's origins, Roland plans to use him as a bargaining tool. Arion, a compassionate vampire, secretly gives Dererick an iPod with music and a transmission about Lestat's court. Filled with hope upon realizing that others like him exist, Dererick vows to find his brethren and escape his prison. Chapter 2. Lestat travels to the ancient monastery of St. Alcarius, refuge of Gremt and his enigmatic Talamasca order. Though he would rather be in New Orleans with Louis, Amel's urgency compels him to attend this meeting. Accompanied by Thorn and Cyril, he follows the snowy path to the imposing structure, where he senses unfamiliar presences. Inside, he is welcomed by Gremt, Tescaman, and Magnus, his creator now a fragile ghost. Their conversation revolves around hidden secrets, warnings about Rashamandez, and Amel's true nature. Amid unsettling revelations and fleeting visions of a sunken city, Lestat feels the weight of his reign. The meeting ends with a kiss from Magnus and an invitation to the court, but Amel's sudden revelation shocks Lestat. Gremt is trapped in his material body. Tormented by questions, Lestat flies toward New Orleans, driven by the need to find Louis. Chapter 3. Gerkin Zweck Bervakin wanders through New York, intrigued by Benji Mahmood's radio broadcasts about immortals and the name Amel, a term he has not heard in millennia. Fascinated, he decides to approach Trinity Gate, Benji's residence. As he walks, he recalls awakening in 1889, his upbringing under Prince Alexei Bervatkin, and his obsessive search for his lost companions, the people of purpose. Upon reaching Trinity Gate, he sees Benji and senses that he is not human. Desperate for answers, he follows him through the city, whispering Amel's name. Benji notices him but flees in a car. Disappointed, Gerkin enters a restaurant, where he is attacked by a vampire named Killer. In self-defense, he kills him and, in an impulsive act, consumes his brain, triggering visions of Amel and the fall of Atalantea. Before he can process what has happened, he is captured by Armand. Chapter 4. Lestat returns to his home on Rue Royale, feeling Amel's absence. He wanders through the house, reminiscing about moments with Louis and Claudia. Before long, Louis arrives, dressed in new clothes that Lestat had bought for him, a silent gesture of acceptance. They embrace, and Louis kisses him, showing an unexpected closeness. Lestat convinces him to go hunting together, and Louis selects a woman involved in a contract killing. As he watches Louis feed, Lestat feels nostalgic for their shared history. Later, at a cafe in New Orleans, Lestat pleads for Louis to accompany him to France and be his ally at the court. Louis resists at first but ultimately agrees, vowing to follow him anywhere. Moved, Lestat feels, for the first time in a long while, that he is not alone, though he still wonders if it is Amel speaking through Louis. Chapter 5. In Paris, Farid and Gregory discuss a troubling researcher at Collingsworth Laboratories, Dr. Karen Reinhardt. Farid has discovered that her identity is falsified, her medical records belonging to an elderly woman in California. Furthermore, she seems to skillfully avoid security cameras. Though Gregory dismisses the concern, Farid is convinced something is off, as her face lacks a human spark. Reviewing laboratory footage, he notices she manipulates the cameras with a digital loop and that her voice, though soft and feminine, does not sound entirely human. Intrigued, he decides to travel to Geneva to observe her in person. Before sleeping, he receives a telepathic warning from New York. Suspecting something grave is unfolding, he wonders if Lestat and Armand will solve the mystery before he awakens. Chapter 6. Lestat and Louis stroll through New Orleans when Thorne interrupts with a call from Armand in New York. Armand has captured a non-human being who killed a vampire and devoured his brain. The creature, named Gerkin Zwek Bervatkin, possesses British documents, money, and a passport, yet he is not human. Although he bleeds like a mortal, his body regenerates too quickly. Armand plans to take him to Paris so that Farid and Seth can study him. Irritated by the interruption, Lestat agrees to travel to Paris at sunset. During the conversation, Armand subtly references Lestat and Louis's relationship, leaving his own feelings ambiguous. As they walk, Lestat wonders if Amel is behind this mystery and whether he knows what this creature truly is. Chapter 7. Bound by steel cables in the basement of Trinity Gate, Gerkin listens to the vampires discuss how to contain him. Armand plans to imprison him in Marius's crypt, but Gerkin, possessing the strength of 10 men, knows he can break free. While pretending to be unconscious, he assesses his surroundings and recalls the city of Atalantea, destroyed by fire and water. When left alone with Eleni, he uses his voice to dominate her, deceiving her and seizing the opportunity to shatter the marble table where he is restrained. He breaks free, slams Eleni against the wall, leaving her gravely wounded, and drinks her blood. At that moment, a voice in his mind orders him to stop. It is Amel, calling him by name. Armand arrives and demands that he let her go. Gerkin obeys and escapes. Disoriented and terrified, he flees to Los Angeles, struggling to understand who Amel truly is. Chapter 8. Lestat gathers the most powerful vampires at his castle in France to discuss the mystery of Gerkin. In the council chamber, Armand describes the visions he experienced after drinking Gerkin's blood. A city with gleaming towers, destroyed in a cataclysm, and an inexplicable connection to Amel. Several vampires, including Lestat, have seen the same vision in dreams. Gregory mentions the legend of Atlantis but remains skeptical of its existence. The information about Gerkin intersects with another discovery. Farid and Seth are investigating a mysterious scientist who may not be human. As they analyze the facts, Amel, the spirit residing within Lestat, suddenly disappears and then returns, filled with anguish. Although Amel insists he knows nothing about the sunken city, some vampires suspect he is lying. Frustrated, Lestat realizes that the key to everything lies in understanding Amel's connection to these beings. Chapter 9. Dererick, imprisoned in a castle in the Hebrides, is tortured by Rashamandez, who demands answers about Gerkin. Dererick refuses to speak, secretly relieved to know his brother is still alive. Enraged, Rashamandez severs his left arm with an axe, leaving him to bleed out. To everyone's astonishment, the wound heals without a trace. After being abandoned in his cell, Dererick witnesses something impossible. His severed arm comes to life and crawls toward him. His regenerated limb reattaches itself to his body, but the horror does not end there. From the severed flesh, a new being identical to Dererick emerges, with the same dark skin but slightly more golden hair. The replica calls him father and promises to free him from the castle. Stunned, Dererick embraces the creature, weeping, unable to comprehend the miracle that has just occurred. Chapter 10. Lestat ventures into the snowy forest surrounding his castle, seeking answers in solitude. He converses with Amel, the spirit within him, demanding explanations about the strange non-human beings. Amel admits that the image of a city sinking into the ocean is tied to his past, though he cannot recall the details. He also mentions Dr. Karen Reinhardt, a mysterious scientist who seems connected to these beings. As Lestat reflects, his guardians search for him, urging him to return to his crypt before dawn. Just before he sleeps, another vision of the lost city haunts him, a kingdom engulfed in flames and black smoke. Troubled, Amel remains silent when Lestat suggests that he may have died in that cataclysm. Only a distant lament breaks the silence, heralding an unimaginable suffering. Chapter 11. Farid, the vampire scientist, investigates the disappearance of Karen Reinhardt, a woman who seems to know too much about vampires. He discovers that she and her companion, Felix Welf, fled after the revelation of Gerkin, another non-human being. Ancient documents reveal that in 1975, they were found unconscious on a California beach and taken in by a woman named Matilda Green. For years, they helped restore her hotel and cared for her during her illness before vanishing mysteriously. As Farid analyzes the data, he receives an alarming call. 2 vampires attempted to capture Gerkin without authorization. The result is disastrous. Gerkin killed one of them and escaped with his head, leaving a trail of blood. Helpless, Farid realizes that these beings are far more powerful and dangerous than they had imagined. As the sun rises, a haunting image fills his dreams. The same lost city, engulfed in flames. Chapter 12. Dererick, a prisoner of the vampires, awakens in a freezing cell, fearing that his offspring has been captured. However, the young being, born from his own body, finds him and sets him free. Dertu, as he has decided to call himself, has managed to get dressed, gather money, documents, and plan their escape. The 2 flee from Rashamandez castle, deceiving an elderly butler into letting them take a yacht. During their escape, Dertu sends a secret message in an ancient language to Capitria and Welf, hoping to reunite with them in Ireland. Still dazed, Dererick begins to recall his race's original mission, to punish Amel for his betrayal of the progenitors. As they sail, Dererick is overcome with doubt and fear. Can they truly escape the vampires? On the radio, Benji Mahmood warns the immortal world about the threat of the non-humans, unaware that Dererick and Dertu are listening to every word. Chapter 13. The chateau was filled with vampires from around the world, gathered under the glow of countless chandeliers. Lestat walked through the crowd, greeting Rose, Victor, and the elders. Thorn led him to the council chamber, where the most ancient vampires debated the fate of Rashamandez and the enigmatic non-humans. Marius insisted on eliminating Rashamandez for his crimes, but Lestat refused, holding his ground as prince. Meanwhile, Amel whispered in his mind in a strange language, which turned out to be the same as the messages transmitted on Benji's radio. It was decided that the non-humans would be invited to the castle before Rashamandez could capture them. The discussion revealed that Amel had a forgotten past, possibly linked to a lost city. Finally, Lestat agreed to go on air to contact the mysterious beings, while tension among the vampires continued to rise. Chapter 14. Consumed by fury, Rashamandez discovered that Dererick had escaped with the help of an unknown ally. In London, at Gerkin's home, Rash and Roland debated the shocking possibility that Dererick could replicate himself. Roland suggested going to the court to negotiate, but Rashamandez rejected the idea, feeling humiliated. In his rage, he unleashed his fire gift, setting Gerkin's mansion ablaze in a surge of power that he relished like never before. As the house burned, Roland attempted to reason with him, but Rashamandez was lost in his hatred for Lestat and his court. In his mind, the absence of Benedict tormented him, leaving him feeling empty without him. When Roland informed him that Lestat had gone on the radio, inviting the non-humans to the castle, Rashamandez felt even more betrayed. With the fire still reflected in his eyes, He made his decision and vanished into the night. Chapter 15. Lestat sought refuge in the rebuilt church of his childhood, yearning for a moment of solitude. Arion accompanied him, sharing his sorrow over the loss of Mona and Quinn, who had disappeared during the burnings. With the weight of so many dead on his shoulders, Lestat lit candles in their memory, recalling their laughter and love for immortality. Arion, having lost his home and loved ones, asked to stay at the court, to which Lestat agreed. Just as they were leaving the church, Lestat's phone vibrated urgently. From a distance, Benji ran toward him, shouting that Capitria was on the line. With the mystery of the non-humans on the verge of being revealed, Lestat knew this conversation would change the fate of them all. Chapter 16. Dererick no longer felt fear. Capitria was with him, holding him tenderly, silencing the questions of their brethren. They had fled from Rashamandez and Roland, traveling secretly to France, where they reunited in a whitewashed house in the hills of Aix-en province. As they shared a meal for the first time in centuries, Dererick recalled Atalantea, the lost city, and the Festival of Flesh, when its inhabitants feasted on lamb and fruit beneath a luminous dome. Before dawn, Capitria introduced K2 and Welf2, beings born from their own bodies through an unknown process. The revelation stunned Dererick, who feared what the vampires would think upon discovering it. Capitria insisted that their meeting with Lestat would be crucial. At sunrise, Rashamandez, consumed by rage and the thirst for revenge, watched the prince's castle from the forest, unaware that someone was about to change his fate. Chapter 17. From the heights of the forest, Rashamandez observed Lestat's chateau, feeling the power radiating from it. He knew he could destroy everything with his fire gift, but his fury and grief consumed him. He wavered between vengeance and despair when Benedict appeared. His former lover, tears in his eyes, begged him not to attack. Rashamandez refused to yield, but Benedict offered him something unexpected: to be together again as before. Benedict's confession of love shattered Rashamandez's resolve, making him doubt his own hatred. With one last glance at the castle, he lifted Benedict into his arms and vanished into the night. Meanwhile, in the chateau, Lestat received the non-humans. Capitria and her group arrived without fear, dressed elegantly. Lestat perceived their potent blood and the absence of fear in their eyes. Something was about to change forever. Chapter 18. In the council chamber, vampires and non-humans sat face to face. Capitria spoke first, assuring them they had come to share their history and reveal their purpose on Earth. Marius and Farid observed the newcomers with caution, aware of their ability to replicate. Dererick, still haunted by his captivity, insisted that they could not be destroyed without catastrophic consequences. Lestat, ever watchful, sensed Amel's presence within him, though the spirit remained silent. Capitria explained that they were the people of purpose, created to fulfill a forgotten mission. She suggested that vampires were nothing more than an anomaly in Amel's propagation, an evolutionary mistake. Tension rose when she hinted that perhaps vampires could be freed from their connection to Amel. Lestat urged her to continue, ready to hear the truth that would change the history of his kind. Chapter 19. Capitria awakened into consciousness in Brevenna 12,000 years ago. She could not move or see, but she heard hypnotic music that filled her with nostalgia. As her translucent chamber opened, she saw Welf, Gerkin, and Dererick, her companions, standing alongside the enigmatic fathers. These winged beings, with pale faces and elongated hands, had created them as reploids, beings designed with cells from various terrestrial life forms. They were not human, though they resembled them. The fathers taught them about Earth and its mammalian inhabitants, whom they despised. Through projections, Capitria and her kin observed human tribes, their rituals, violence, and emotions. Their mission was clear: to infiltrate Atalantea and destroy it with an explosion that would reset Earth's evolutionary course. Dererick, horrified, resisted his fate. The fathers attempted to calm him with chants, but a deep distrust toward them took root within Capitria. Chapter 20. The fathers revealed that Amel was created as the most advanced reploid, endowed with vast knowledge and superior abilities. His mission was to repair transmission stations on Earth and release a plague to eradicate mammalian humans. To be revered, he was designed with fair skin, green eyes, and red hair. However, Amel betrayed them. Rather than fulfilling his purpose, he destroyed the stations and used the plague to immunize humans. He became the magnificent ruler of Atalantea, a city protected by an impenetrable dome. Unable to stop him, the Fathers created Capitria and her group with the mission of infiltrating the city and self-destructing alongside Amel, triggering a global catastrophe. Capitria, skeptical, asked if there was an alternative. The Fathers admitted that if they could persuade Amel to leave, they might reconsider. With doubt and fear, the reploids were sent to Earth to begin their mission. Chapter 21. The Fathers insist that Capitria and her group must convince Amel to leave the dome and bring him to Ravenna. With that mission in mind, the reploids depart for Earth. Upon arrival, they are awed by the vastness of the real world, filled with sounds, scents, and sensations. However, they fear they are being watched. For 3 months, they live among human tribes and discover that the Fathers' portrayal of humanity was inaccurate. Far from being purely violent, they find prosperous and peaceful communities with strong family bonds, celebrations, and an obsession with justice. The chambers of suffering, where people weep and pray to the Creator, are scattered throughout the land, raising Capitria's suspicions. At last, they reach the coast and are easily accepted as travelers to Atalantea. They board a ship alongside others eager to reach the magnificent city rising before them, unaware of the fate that awaits them. Chapter 22. Upon arriving in Atalantea, the travelers are dazzled by the city of translucent towers and streets lined with fruit trees and flowers. The inhabitants are elegant, pristine, and dressed in shimmering garments. They are astonished by the city's advanced technology, moving staircases, transport capsules, and buildings that can change opacity. They quickly adapt, acquiring local currency and communication devices. They learn that the city's energy is derived from the sun and water, with no hidden accumulators. They also witness the construction of a building grown from a seed before their eyes. The Festival of Flesh marks the arrival of traders from the wild lands, where goods are exchanged, feasts are held, and celebrations last until dawn. The city lacks a permanent military force, relying instead on trained citizens to maintain order. Their greatest shock comes when Amel summons them. Fearful of their mission, they decide to accept his invitation, uncertain whether their true purpose has already been discovered. Chapter 23. The Creative Tower glows with golden floors and pearlescent walls. Guided through its radiant corridors, the travelers encounter advanced laboratories, computers, and cages filled with animals, until they reach Amel. The ruler greets them with a smile, but his first question leaves them breathless. He knows that Ravenna sent them to lure him out of the dome. He reveals that he has been monitoring their movements since their arrival on Earth. Amel shows them scans of their bodies, proving that they lack human organs and, most importantly, toxins or explosives. He confesses that Ravenna modified him to govern and propagate transmission stations, but he betrayed his purpose. The truth is chilling. The Bravennans feed on human suffering as a source of energy. Atalantea is his refuge against their exploitation. Shocked, the travelers are given credentials to explore the city before deciding their fate. As they leave, they know they have uncovered the truth, but also that their mission has changed forever. Chapter 24. Amel welcomes the reploids as allies. During a banquet, he introduces them to the few of their kind who have chosen to stay. Among them is Maxim, a different kind of reploid who has served Amel for centuries, but whose faith in a creator leads him to question the paradise of Atalantea. Maxim accuses Amel of weakening humanity with his peaceful society. Their argument grows heated, and Amel confronts him, asserting that every conscious being has a soul. Enraged, Maxim leaves the gathering, warning that the creator will punish Amel's arrogance. Shortly after, disaster strikes. Ravenna explodes in the sky, unleashing catastrophe. Atalantea is consumed by fire and water. Capitria and Wealth manage to survive, but Dererick, Gherkin, and Amel vanish in the chaos. Centuries later, the survivors awaken in an unrecognizable world, fragmented remnants of a forgotten past. Now they seek answers, and they have found Amel within Lestat. Chapter 25. Capitria's revelation about Atlantis leaves the vampires in stunned silence. Lestat feels an unfamiliar pain in his head, something Amel has never caused before. As Farid and the others delve into a scientific discussion, Amel urges Lestat to interrupt and question Capitria. When Lestat accuses Amel of not always telling the truth, the pain intensifies until he collapses. Guided by Amel, he scrawls a message in an ancient language that Capitria cannot decipher. Amel insists that she must seek answers within herself. Exhausted, Lestat agrees to drink Capitria's blood, triggering visions of Atlantis, Amel, and the mysterious substance known as Luricastria. Upon awakening, he feels the weight of the revelation and the looming threat Amel may pose to all young vampires. Chapter 26. Lestat awakens weakened after the painful experience with Amel. At the chateau, Victor and Rose, also affected by the same torment, seek answers. Lestat confirms that Amel did not intend to cause suffering, but the damage was real and widespread. As he reflects on the nature of Luricastria and its effects on vampires, he discovers that the reploids have multiplied in number. Louis and Victor accompany him as he attempts to ease the unrest in the court. In the ballroom, vampires from all over the world revel in a musical frenzy. Zenobia and Chrysanthe draw him onto the dance floor, and he feels the weight of his leadership. Outside, Gremt, the incarnate spirit, asks Lestat to drink his blood to understand his nature. Lestat obliges and sees visions of a spirit world at war. The experience shakes him, leaving him with a deep sense of uncertainty. Chapter 27. Rashamandez stands before Gregory, Seth, Severine, and his own fledglings, who accuse him of treason and cowardice. They restrain him with their power, forcing him to confront his guilt. When he refuses to surrender Roland, he is forced to watch as Roland is brought in as a prisoner, only to be reduced to ashes before his eyes. Benedict, his most loyal companion, weeps for Roland's loss, while Rashamandez resigns himself to his fate. In the end, he agrees to a vow never to attack his own kind or the reploids again. Severine demands that the court grant him the right to live in peace. Defeated, Rashamandez returns to his castle and, in the darkness of his chamber, finds solace in Benedict. As he dreams of past operas, he accepts that vengeance and anger only bring suffering. Now, only Benedict's love matters to him, and together, they plan to move forward, far from the court and his past. Chapter 28. After listening to Capitria and living among the vampires, Dererick begins to see them as more than just monsters. At the inn, Lestat and Marius discuss Rashamandez with Capitria. Now that Roland is dead and Benedict's love has softened Rashamandez, he has sworn to keep the peace. Capitria insists that her colony must leave and spend time together before deciding their future. Lestat and Marius remain skeptical but accept their decision. Before departing, Lestat hands Capitria a message written by Amel in the language of Atalantea, asserting that they cannot harm him or his kind. Capitria acknowledges his words, assuring him she will never harm him. She then gives Lestat a vial of her blood for Farid. As they bid farewell, Dererick finally feels he has found a home. Watching Lestat and Marius walk away, he realizes that, while Marius may appear to rule, it is Lestat's will that holds the vampire world together. Chapter 29. Farid analyzes Capitria's blood while Lestat and Marius inform him of the reploids' departure. However, Dr. Flannery uncovers a deception. Capitria has secretly gathered materials to construct a reploid body. The conclusion is alarming. She intends to create a body for Amel and free him from Lestat. Though aware of the danger, Lestat chooses not to act. Flannery urges him to intervene, but he refuses, convinced that any attempt to detain them would be a mistake. Soon after, Thorne and Cyril confirm that the reploids have left the castle. Lestat simply lets them go. Before retreating, he issues one last order. The scientists must focus on finding a way to sever his connection with Amel, because when Capitria returns, she will come for him. Farid, frustrated by Lestat's passivity, fears they may not find a solution in time to save the tribe. Chapter 30. 7 nights have passed since the reploids' departure, and the vampire court is in turmoil. Benji proclaims peace, but telepathic exchanges among blood drinkers reveal their fear. Armand demands that the reploids be eliminated, while Marius argues that their rapid proliferation makes annihilating them impossible. As Farid, Seth, and Flannery seek answers in Paris, Lestat becomes obsessed with severing the connection between Amel and the tribe, without destroying them all. Capitria has given them a clue. The connection is a failed attempt at reproduction. Amel, growing more aware of his past, becomes desperate. In an unexpected twist, he uses Lestat's phone while he sleeps to contact Capitria. When Lestat discovers this, he realizes time is running out. The tribe must act before the reploids return to claim Amel, and possibly end all vampires. Chapter 31. Lestat confesses his growing desperation to Louis. During their conversation, Louis proposes a shocking theory. Vampires never truly died when they were created, which is why the cord binding them to Amel was never broken. However, he himself did die when he was exposed to the sun, and when he was revived by powerful blood, he was disconnected from Amel. The key to saving the tribe, then, might be stopping Lestat's heart long enough to sever the connection. Intrigued, they travel to Paris to discuss the theory with Farid and Seth. After intense debates, Farid decides to test it on himself. His heart is stopped, and when he revives, he realizes he is no longer connected. The tribe agrees to attempt the experiment on Lestat the next day. If successful, all vampires will be freed from Amel without dying, but the risk of losing Amel in the process remains. Chapter 32. Hours before the experiment, Lestat receives a call from Capitria, who has heard Benji's warning. She wishes to help, but Lestat refuses, accusing her of abandoning them. Nevertheless, Capitria arrives at the chateau alone, pleading to be allowed to participate. Lestat, surprised, warns her that she has made a strategic mistake by separating from her colony. However, Amel insists she should be accepted. Exhausted, Lestat leaves the decision to the others and withdraws. As he rests, Amel assures him that the experiment will work. If Lestat's heart stops, the tribe will disconnect without perishing. However, a troubling doubt arises. Could Amel himself be severed from Lestat in the process? Though he dismisses the idea, uncertainty lingers. At dawn, the tribe is ready to proceed, but the fate of Amel and the survival of the vampires remain uncertain. Chapter 33. Lestat lies in his crypt while Capitria and Farid prepare the experiment that could disconnect all vampires from Amel. Rose and Victor wait nervously while Louis stays by his side. As his heart is stopped, Lestat is transported into a vision of Atalantea, Amel's lost city, where Amel shows him its former splendor. The illusion crumbles, and Lestat awakens. Amel is still within him, but the disconnection has occurred. Around the world, vampires recover quickly, yet Capitria seems troubled. Lestat ascends to the ballroom and, to test his independence, burns his hand over a candle. His body heals, confirming that the experiment has worked. However, he can still sense Amel's presence. Chapter 34. Farid documents the effects of the disconnection. Although vampires have lost their bond with Amel, their abilities remain intact. It is confirmed that the transformation of new vampires is still possible. Meanwhile, Lestat behaves as if nothing has changed, unconcerned about the danger that Amel's presence within him still represents. He visits Rashamandez, who receives him politely but remains wary of the reploids. Marius and Farid debate whether it is possible to extract Amel without killing Lestat. Meanwhile, Capitria has vanished with a vial of vampire blood, preparing for a new attempt. Tension rises within the court as everyone awaits the next move. Chapter 35. Capitria contacts Lestat and asks to meet him in Paris. She knows Amel must be extracted from his body, but she cannot guarantee his safety. Lestat hesitates, while Louis, Armand, and others urge him not to take the risk. In the end, he decides to go alone. Capitria reveals her plan. Replace Lestat's blood with reploid blood, open his skull, and transfer Amel into an artificial body. Lestat is unprepared to accept the procedure. As he hesitates, an unknown force suddenly seizes him. Capitria watches in horror as Lestat is taken away without being able to resist. An old enemy has returned to settle the score. Chapter 36. Lestat awakens in an operating room, immobilized by steel restraints. Rashamandez holds him down while the reploids prepare to extract Amel from his body. In the preceding battle, Cyril, Thorn, and others tried to rescue him, but Lestat stopped the fight to prevent further bloodshed. Now, beneath blinding lights and surrounded by medical equipment, he fears losing Amel. His mind drifts into visions of Atalantea as the procedure begins. Later, he wakes up in a building in Paris, alone and free. He touches his head and feels the scars from the surgery. Confused, he steps outside into a snow-covered plaza. It is then that he realizes Amel is no longer within him. For the first time in centuries, he is truly alone. Back at the chateau, everyone celebrates his return, but Lestat can only weep in the darkness. Chapter 37. Lestat gathers all the vampires at the chateau and confirms that Amel is gone. Without revealing details of the operation, he declares that the tribe must now consider itself sacred. He insists that they are neither cursed nor monsters, but beings with the right to exist and seek meaning in their eternity. He urges them to respect the new court laws and not succumb to isolation. After his speech, Lestat visits Rashamandez at his castle. In an unexpected gesture of reconciliation, he shakes his hand and offers peace. Although Rashamandez accepts, his hatred for Amel remains evident. Lestat senses that the vampire community still fears the spirit that had bound them together for centuries. He knows that Amel's absence will not bring solace to all. Deep down, he understands that Amel's story will turn into legend, and with time, many vampires will forget who he truly was. Chapter 38. Spring arrives at the chateau, and the court thrives. Lestat and Louis spend their nights exploring Paris, savoring the city as never before. One evening at a cafe, Lestat feels someone watching him, a young red-haired man with green eyes. It is Amel, now incarnated in a perfect human body, identical to the one he had in Atalantea. Lestat is overwhelmed with emotion. Amel tells him that he has been learning to live as a human and has dreamed of finding him. They talk for hours about science, history, and his new existence. Before parting, Lestat embraces him and, in a surge of love, gives him his blood. Amel experiences the ecstasy of the vampiric transformation, but moments later, the reploid women arrive to take him away. They depart, promising to meet again. That night, Lestat announces to the court that Amel has survived. He knows that few ever truly loved him, but he did. He reflects on love as the only eternal truth and the only hope for redemption. We've reached the end of Prince Lestat and the Realms of Atlantis. Thank you for joining us through this journey of ancient cities and immortal souls. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, like, and share the video with other lovers of dark literature. Now tell me in the comments, do you think Lestat truly freed himself from Amel? Which and Rice book should we summarize next?